Deep in the forests of Eastern Europe, beyond the paths that men dare to walk, there lives a creature older than memory. She is not quite a villain. She is not quite a guardian. She is something far more unsettling, something in between. Her name is Baba Yaga, and for centuries she has haunted the folklore of the Slavic world with a power that no other figure in world mythology quite matches. The name itself carries weight. Baba is an old Slavic word for woman, grandmother, or elder. Yaga is harder to translate. Scholars have debated its meaning for generations. Some connect it to an old word meaning horror or illness. Others trace it to a Proto Slavic root meaning to abuse or torment. What all agree on is this: her name is ancient, far older than the written word. The first time Baba Yaga appeared in writing was in 1755 in a Russian grammar book by the scholar Mikhail Lomonosov. He listed her among the figures of Slavic tradition, but notably, unlike other beings he recorded, she had no Roman equivalent. She stood alone. Even then, she defied easy comparison. But the stories about her had been circulating long before any ink touched the page. Scholars believe she existed in the oral tradition of Slavic people for centuries prior, possibly stretching back to the pre-Christian pagan world of early medieval Eastern Europe. To understand Baba Yaga, you must first understand where she lives. Her home is a small hut deep in the darkest part of the forest. But this is no ordinary dwelling. It stands on giant chicken legs, able to turn and rotate at will, and is surrounded by a fence of human bones, topped with skulls whose empty eye sockets glow in the dark. The only way to make the hut face you, to gain entry, is to speak the correct magical words. The structure itself is alive. It is aware. And it is watching. Scholars have long debated the meaning behind that strange image, a hut on chicken legs. One compelling theory draws on ancient Slavic burial practices. In parts of early Eastern Europe, the dead were not buried in the ground. Instead, they were placed inside small wooden huts built on raised posts, elevated above the earth, deep in the forest. The hut on chicken legs, in this interpretation, is not simply a fantastical image. It is a funeral house, a dwelling for the dead. And the reason Baba Yaga lives there is because she herself exists at the threshold, not fully in the world of the living and not fully in the world of the dead, but somewhere between the two. This idea of the threshold is central to everything Baba Yaga represents. In Slavic cosmology, the forest was not simply a wilderness. It was the boundary between the known world and the unknown, between the living and the dead, between order and chaos. Baba Yaga guards that boundary. She is its keeper, and anyone who wishes to cross it, any hero, any wanderer, any fool, must first face her. When a traveler arrives at her hut, they usually find her inside, stretched across an enormous stove that spans the full width of the room. She's described consistently across hundreds of tales, terrifyingly thin, with iron teeth, a long nose that grazes the ceiling, and legs that resemble those of a skeleton. Some scholars have noted that her appearance mirrors that of a corpse, gaunt, pale, barely alive. This is not accidental. She is the embodiment of death itself, in the form of an old woman. And yet, she does not always kill. This is what makes Baba Yaga so endlessly fascinating, and so unlike the simple villains of Western fairy tales. In some stories, she devours the unwary traveler without a second thought. In others, she bathes the hero, feeds them, and gives them precisely the knowledge or magical gift they need to complete their quest. She sets impossible tasks. She issues dire warnings. She tests. And those who are worthy, those who are brave, clever, or simply polite enough to ask her for help before demanding it, are rewarded. One of the most famous stories featuring her is Vasilisa the Beautiful, a Russian folk tale collected by the great folklorists Alexander Afanasyev in the 19th century. In it, a young girl named Vasilisa is sent by her cruel stepmother into the forest, ostensibly to fetch fire from Baba Yaga's hut, a task designed to get rid of her. She arrives, is set to an enormous series of tasks: cooking, cleaning, sorting mountains of grain, and completes them all with the help of a magical doll her late mother left her. When she asks no dangerous questions, when she shows respect and diligence, Baba Yaga rewards her. She sends her home carrying a skull with glowing eyes, the fire she was sent to fetch, which burns down the wicked stepmother on arrival. Vasilisa survives. The unworthy do not. What is striking about this tale, and so many others like it, is that Baba Yaga is less a villain than a force of nature. She does not act out of cruelty for its own sake. She acts as a test. The force tests you. Death tests you. Transformation tests you. And Baba Yaga is the instrument of all three. This has led many scholars to propose that Baba Yaga may originally have been far more than a witch in a fairy tale. Some researchers, including the scholar Andreas Johns, have argued that she may descend from an ancient pre-Christian Slavic goddess, a deity of death, earth, and transformation, worshipped in the pagan world before Christianity reshaped the spiritual landscape of Eastern Europe. When the old religion was pushed aside, the great goddess did not disappear. She retreated into the forest. She became older, stranger, and darker. She became Baba Yaga. Others have proposed she is connected to the underworld deity Igaya Baba, a figure described in old Slavic records as a terrifying goddess seated in an iron mortar, to whom blood sacrifice was made. The mortar, notably, is one of Baba Yaga's most recognizable features. In dozens of tales, she does not travel on horseback or on foot. She flies, sitting inside a giant iron mortar, steering it with the pestle and sweeping away her tracks behind her with a broom. It is one of the most striking images in all of world folklore, an ancient skeletal woman hurtling through the sky in a stone vessel, erasing every trace of her passage. The mortar and pestle also carry symbolic weight. In the ancient world, the mortar and pestle were instruments of transformation, raw things ground down and changed into something new. The herbalist used them to make medicine. The alchemist used them to break matter apart. In Baba Yaga's hands, they become instruments of a deeper transformation, the kind that happens to the soul when it brushes against the unknown and survives. Baba Yaga has a connection to time itself. In several traditions, she is attended by three horsemen: a white rider who represents the dawn, a red rider who represents the sun, and a black rider who represents the night. Each rides past her hut in turn. They are her servants. She commands the passage of day and night. She is not merely old, she is as old as time, and time bends to her. In the centuries since her stories were first committed to paper, Baba Yaga has never faded. She appeared in the work of Alexander Pushkin in the 19th century, who referenced her in his epic poem Ruslan and Lyudmila. The composer Modest Mussorgsky immortalized her music in 1874 in his famous piano suite Pictures at an Exhibition, in which the movement titled The Hut on Fowl's Legs captures her wild, lurching energy. She has since appeared in countless novels, films, and stories across the world, adapted and reinterpreted but always recognizable. Always the old woman at the edge of the world, dangerous and unknowable, waiting in her turning hut for the next traveler brave enough to knock. She is the guardian of the threshold, the keeper of the dead, the tester of souls. Ancient peoples feared her because they understood something that modernity has largely forgotten: that the forest does not care for you, that nature does not bend to your wishes, and that the deepest wisdom cannot be learned in safety. It can only be found at the edge, in the dark, at the door of a hut that stands on legs, surrounded by the bones of those who came before you and were found wanting. Baba Yaga is still there. She has always been there. And the forest, for those who dare to enter it, is still full of her.